CBS News national security correspondent Charlie Daggett, who's joining us from the Pentagon with a lot more. So Charlie, I guess the question that people have is we see the celebrations in the streets. We know that this is, as you know better than anybody, that this has been a long, bloody civil war that's lasted for much longer than anyone. I recall I was still just an associate producer when this war kicked off, just to show folks how long it's been that this war has been ongoing. And we thought back then, I was working at CNN, we thought back then that the war was going to be over relatively quickly. And it dragged out for all these years, so many lives lost, so much treasure spent. The question, of course, is what's next? What does the United States hope to see? What do partners in the region hope to see happens next?
Well, Vlad, I was there when it began, too, and it has taken so long, and there were many chapters. Remember, this is where ISIS was born. As far as U.S. policy is concerned, the Syrian civil war never ended. It might be argued that it hasn't even ended yet, considering the disparate groups that are involved in it. But, for a while, it had reached a sort of simmering status quo. You had government forces concentrated in the south, protecting Damascus, rebel groups to the northwest, around the Turkish border, like using Idlib as a base or its capital. Then, of course, the Kurdish groups in the northeast, those are allied with the United States and its forces there. But now, the entire deck has been reshuffled. Israel has entered the Golan Heights, that buffer zone along the Syrian border for the first time in 50 years. That reflects the volatility. The United States just launched one of the biggest airstrike campaigns in months against ISIS in Syria using B-52s, F-15 fighter jets. Again, that underlines the volatility there. We've already had reports from my colleagues on the ground of fighting between various factions. For example, there are elements within the Turkish militias who are sworn enemies of elements of inside the Kurdish SDF. So the leader of the main Islamist group is still on the U.S. and UN terrorist list. Then there are scores to settle with members of the former regime, as you saw in that report. There are a lot of people that are going to be scared of reprisals. And this is the same kind of environment that gave rise to ISIS. So, after the honeymoon, after the celebrations, expect some jostling for power and territory.
So, Charlie, just to the point that you made earlier about being there and as a reporter, you as a journalist, having witnessed all of this bloodshed that we saw over the course of this war, just remind people, I think this is what's hard for people to understand, and perhaps this is why it's not getting that much attention here in the United States, is how this all began. Remember, his father, Hafez al-Assad, was also a brutal dictator, but when Bashar became president, he was actually the second son, as you know. He was an eye doctor, and there was a lot of hope in the Middle East that he would be a reformer, and that turned out not to be the case. How did this all kick off?
There really was. Well, it first started with a demonstration that got out of control because it was really on the heels, or really in the midst of the Arab Spring. So they were sort of protesting for a sense of democracy, and it was a long time ago. And you had leaderships and dictators, and that's the way it was run. If you look at Iran, if you look at Syria, you look at Ba'athist regimes. But he was in charge of a minority, the Alawite community. So when the civil war began, it just erupted. And when we first went over, we crossed over from Turkey with some Syrian activists. We went to the same places like Tal Rifat. We were there. As a matter of fact, we bumped into a group of al-Nusra fighters, and we were told with our own FSA guys, look, lay low with those guys. Al-Nusra is the same group, even though they cut their ties, now currently in control, or the lead group of this rebel group. So highly militant, extremely violent, in the past anyway. And some of the worst scenes of violence that I've ever witnessed, I witnessed on the battlefields of Syria, because after that happened, then ISIS came along, and they just rampaged through all of Syria. That's when the United States was brought in. It was in Iraq. It was in Syria. Remember Mosul? All of that was connected and fighting for years and years and years. What surprised me, what shocked me the most about this is, first of all, the Turks are sort of behind this in a way. They took off the brakes and let these militant groups go. But how quickly it happened. This happened in less than 2 weeks. I mean, that civil war, as you just mentioned, that's dragged on for 15 years, and it's over in 2 weeks. That's why I'm really cautious, because this hasn't played out yet. You know, we've got the Kurds. They'll want their piece of the pie. We'll have these militant groups. They'll absolutely want to get what they've been fighting over. The regime, if you want to call it that, or the Syrian government, if we want to rename it, they will have some jostling if they want to continue running that country. It's all going to be about a peaceful coalition.
So finally, Charlie, let me ask you a question that a lot of journalists have been asking President Biden, and I'm sure at the Pentagon they're probably talking about this too. We've seen images of prisoners being released from those heinous prisons of Bashar al-Assad. Any word about American journalist Austin Tice?
Yeah, you know, absolutely. We're all hoping for word, right, as journalists. The FBI has renewed the offer of $1 million. That happened yesterday for anything leading for information to the rescue of Austin Tice. He's been missing since 2012. The FBI believes he's in Damascus. And a Syrian activist told Margaret Brennan yesterday on Face the Nation that all the factions are working hard to find them. So, as you said, we've seen the rebels emptying prisons. It's hoped they'll find Tice. A few days ago, his family said they found a new source, a reliable source, who told them that their son is alive and healthy and has been treated well. So, you know, there is hope. Secretary of State Blinken said the State Department is doing what they can to find him. But we have to remember that we've been in a blackout. The diplomatic sources have been in a blackout in Syria. President Biden said yesterday they have to pinpoint him and bring him home.
Yeah, indeed. Here's hoping. All right, Charlie, thank you very much for your analysis and reporting. We appreciate you as always. Thanks.
Yeah, and Brett, Bashar al-Assad and his family have been granted asylum in Russia, like I mentioned, after arriving in Moscow yesterday. The Assad family ruled for 50 years in Syria. Is the Syrian government still operational at this moment?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's one that a lot of different governments around the world, including the United States, are keeping a close eye on, because obviously the Assad government is no more. He's fled for Russia. And so now I think attention turns to HTS, this rebel group, as sort of the obvious group that will sort of fill the vacuum of leadership in Syria. But there are a lot of questions about how exactly the government will operate. As you said, it's unclear whether the government itself can stand up, whether it is sturdy enough to sort of rule over the country for both the short term and the long term, if this is just going to be sort of different warring factions that will be competing for power here. But certainly with the absence of the Assad government, it opens up a lot of questions about who fills that void, whether it is HTS, whether it's a different rebel group or some kind of coalition government that forms here.
Brutalized and tortured and killed literally hundreds of thousands of innocent Syrians. The fall of the regime is a fundamental act of justice. It's a moment of historic opportunity for the long-suffering people of Syria to build a better future for their proud country. It's also a moment of risk and uncertainty. As we all turn to the question of what comes next, the United States will work with our partners and the stakeholders in Syria to help them seize an opportunity to manage the risks. For years, the main backers of Assad have been Iran, Hezbollah, and Russia. But over the last week, their support collapsed, all three of them, because all three of them are far weaker today than they were when I took office. And let's remember why. After Hamas attacked Israel on October the 7th, 2023, when much of the world responded with horror, Iran and its proxies chose to launch a multi-front war against Israel. That was a historic mistake on Iran's part. Today, Iran's main territorial proxy, Hezbollah, is also on its back. We will engage with all Syrian groups, including within the process led by the United Nations, to establish a transition away from the Assad regime toward independent, sovereign, independent, I want to say it again, sovereign Syria, with a new constitution, a new government that serves all Syrians. And this process will be determined by the Syrian people themselves. And the United States will do whatever we can to support, including those who reside there, as well as Austin Tice, who was taken captive more than 12 years ago. We remain committed to returning him to his family. This is the best opportunity in generations for Syrians to forge their own future, free of opposition, It's also an opportunity through far from certain, for a more secure and prosperous Middle East, where our friends are safe, where enemies are contained. And it would be a waste of this historic opportunity if one tyrant were toppled and only to see a new one rise up in its place.
واحد صوت واحد جاي يا الله كلها نفس المنطقة عم يضربوا في شيء متركز هون يا حرام اوه هدف مدينة دمشق الله أكبر محمد شيء بخوف
Москву. Да. Сегодня ночью нами был нанесен комплексный удар с применением 90 ракет подобных классов и 100 беспилотников. Поражено 17 целей. Это военные объекты, объекты оборонной промышленности и системы их обеспечения. Повторю еще раз, эти удары с нашей стороны состоялись также в ответ на непрекращающиеся удары по российской территории американскими ракетными атаками. Как уже говорил неоднократно, с нашей стороны ответ всегда будет.
What I've seen regarding the drones is more so just when you're driving around at night and you see the blinking lights up in the sky. And when I was driving home from a friend's house, I saw one that looked about the size of a car that was just hovering over Flanders Valley golf course. It was a circular object that had lights all around it, almost like the classic UFO that you would see online.
So I've seen them over my house just about every single night for the past 2.5 weeks. At first they were more sporadic. I would see 1 to 2, sometimes 3 of them. And now we're seeing anywhere between 6 to 8 in a single sighting. So they're not scary per se. They're not like looking through your window. They're not crashing into your house. But it's still concerning because there are these mystery UFOs, unidentified flying objects flying around that nobody is giving any answers to, and nobody seems to know what they are. This is something that's either military or beyond. These are huge. They're not the size of the normal video and camera drones that everyone's used to seeing, the ones that are about this big. These are big. They're the size of small cars. Honestly, we have military. There's helicopters, there's planes. Somebody needs to go up there when one of those drones are out, get a close shot of it, or even, if it's possible, take one of them down. If they truly don't know what it is, it makes no sense that they're not trying everything they can, like the Chinese spy balloon that was floating around for a while, to take one down to get more information.
What we learned this week was that New Jersey lawmakers had a meeting with Federal Department of Homeland Security officials and the state police. And what one lawmaker told the Associated Press was that they don't have a clue what the origin of these drones is or what's going on with them. But there was some other information that came out this week. Officials said that the drones began November 18th, that they've come out every night since then, that they're usually in the skies over central and northern New Jersey from about 7 p.m. until 11 p.m. They're difficult to detect. The state police have tried to go after them with state helicopters, the Associated Press was told by a lawmaker. And as soon as that happened, as soon as the chopper's lights were on the drone went dark and they were untraceable. We've also learned that these drones are large, relatively speaking. They're not hobbyist drones, the officials said. They're about 6 feet in diameter, so they're large. And And today, the Attorney General of New Jersey said that New Jersey needs federal authorities' help to determine what's going on here.
Revelation chapter 16, 18 through 21. And it reads, "And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake, and so great. The great city was divided into three parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before the Most High, to give unto her the cup of wine of the fierceness of his wrath." Verse 20, "Every island fled away, and mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. And men blasphemed the Most High because of the plague of the hail, for the plagues, for the plague thereof was exceedingly great." Kohalo Yahweh, Bashema Mashiach Yahushai, Wahar Rakakodash. Double honors to the mighty men, the elders, and the apostles in the community, waking up the lost sheep, the house of Israel in these last days. Peace and blessings to everyone doing this truth and humbleness, sincerity. Again, I'm going to say shalom. And, Israel, we coming off a heavy week of prophecy. Okay, you had the Assyrian leader, Assad. Okay, he fled. He was given, he was annexed into Russia. Okay, and there's a lot of storylines behind what led to that condition. Okay, and here in the West, the mainstream media, they're celebrating as if, Russia and Iran took a significant blow. They may have taken a small hit losing SYRIA. Okay, it won't stop the judgment to come. Okay, from the looks of things, that's setting the stage for just war escalation. Keep in mind, and I'm gonna always bring this out. Remember Joe Biden, he started World War III, basically, when he had Ukraine use attack missiles. And Russia has made it very clear that they're going to stand their ground. And if you look at the full interview with Tucker Carlson and Sergey Lavrov didn't even bluff. He don't want it to end nuclear, but Russia's made it very clear they're not scared to take it there. Okay, the bottom line right now, America is at an end. America meets 250 years going into late next year, I believe. It's either late next year or shortly after that. And there's not a kingdom recorded that's ever lasted beyond this point without judgment. So America is coming into judgment. Okay, so we have World War III. There are reports China, which I didn't post, China set some type of deadline on minerals regarding chips and all types of tools they use to make weapons. I'm just being general, but it's a special element that's dug up or whatever, and China has put a blockage on America retrieving these items. One of the elders went into it in the community. Okay, I'm chopping it up a bit, but the bottom line is America's entering into that final judgment, and it's coming quickly. Also, over the week, there was news about, biblically we know they're the chariots, but now the news is singing this song, or rather this narrative. Okay, there are drones being spotted all over parts of Jersey. I don't want to say all over Jersey. Okay, but there are areas in Jersey where there are reports of drones. Now, the mainstream media tried to say it was the Iranians, but other sources said it wasn't the Iranians. But all matter of sights and signs, okay, signs and wonders, Slakia, is being made manifest before us. Slakia. And the Lord, okay, the Most High of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, he's showing us our time is thinning out here. Okay, so I'm going to bring out a very few scriptures and precepts, and we're going to wind it down, okay? Let's get the classic, because ultimately this is going to play out. There's a reason why I push the destruction. Okay, you see that often on my videos, and a lot of brothers throughout the community do this as well, because the destruction, it goes into our deliverance. Okay, so let's read about it a little, and I'm gonna wind it down. Joel 3:1-3. It reads, "For behold, in those days and in that time, when I shall bring again the captivity of Judah and Jerusalem, and I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land." Okay, let's stop there for a minute. And if you're new to this community, and I always say this to people in the world, you have to consider the history of who the 12 tribes of Israel are versus the status quo, if you know what I'm saying. Okay, there's no peace on this planet Earth, family. There's no peace. And I'm talking about Isaiah 2:4, Micah 4:3. None of that happened after World War II. Y'all know where I'm going. Okay. That's going to happen after the wicked elites are destroyed off this land. Or lands, should I say. Because the stage is being set with this war. Okay. It says, "And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink." And that's really going into slavery. Okay, that's Psalms 83, I believe, when all the nations were confederate against the 12 tribes and the children of Israel. Okay, and that's common sense based on what's going on geopolitically. The true children of Israel obviously are not set up yet. We're coming into that with this war, okay? And this war will turn nuclear. Okay, don't the Most High say he come quickly and his reward is with him? It's only a matter of time going forward. America is America has reached its peak. And the world, okay, the other nation, okay, those worlds, those other nations confederate against America and little America by way of your BRICS, they're setting present to war America, and it's going to end in thermal nuclear destruction. The wicked will be judged, okay, the wicked's going to be judged, and the righteous, okay, the righteous is going to be delivered on this coming judgment day. Very soon, it will be no more YouTube, social media, okay, going to work. It's going to get bad. It's going to get bad. There's reports Russia already set up satellite-related weapons to do severe damage, and we're anticipating some breaking news with that as well. Because America time as a kingdom has run out. Okay? If there's any more before I wind it down, I'm gonna end it here. I'm gonna go to one of the oldest classics there is. Okay. We're gonna end it with the classic, but just slack it. Just keep watch on these global news. I'm gonna continue to post more content, more world news events. And just keep your eye open. Do not sleep on these last days, because family, we're in the very last days of our captivity, okay? Slack it. But this is what the Most High told us to do. And we're going to do it here. Zephaniah chapter 2 and verse 1. And it reads, gather yourselves together. Yeah, gather together, O nation not desire. Before the decree bring forth, before the day pass as the chaff, before the fierce anger of the Lord come upon you, before the day of the Lord's anger come upon you. And that's really going into this judgment day. Because it's going to be sudden. I'll tell you that 2 Peter 3:10, he's going to come like a thief in the night. So we have to stay up in his truth. And do not give up the ghost in his truth, because America has nothing to offer to you. Except debt, slack, except debt and sorrows, man. Okay. Verse 3. Seek ye the Lord, all ye meek of the earth, which have wrought his judgment. Seek righteousness, seek meekness. It may be ye shall be hid in the day of the Lord's anger. And that's going into your Revelations 11:7. Deliverance out of here. When them walls of fire overthrow America and its wicked society and its wicked kingdom. Okay? And with that, we give all praise, honor, and glory to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Yahweh, Ba'ashim HaMashiach, Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the mighty men, the elders, and the apostles in the community. The elders and the apostles of the house of David. Peace and blessings to everyone doing this truth. And humble and sincerity. Israel, I love y'all. We got next. Shalom, family.